Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lexi's Book Nook. I am Lexi. I am your host. This is a booktube channel all about books, reading book club recommendations, and Reese Witherspoon book club picks as well. And then this episode is a bonus episode, so it's a little bit different. If you follow me on my podcast, Lexi's Book Nook, on Spotify and Patreon, it is found on Spotify for free, Patreon for $3 a month for bonus content to see my face, my book nook, get inspiration for your own, and see the book covers. And that's to support the podcast and to get all those benefits. On Spotify, it's all for free. Both channels, you get 2 episodes per month. Beginning of the month, I will go over all the books that we read for that month, 2 book club recommendations, one from my hometown in Bel Air, Maryland, the second one from Cockeysville, Maryland. And then I'll go through Reese Witherspoon's book club recommendation from the year prior, and I'll review it. And then added books on my TBR list that is to be read that are trying to stay in theme with the month. But today's episode is a bonus episode, meaning that if you listen to my podcast, that this book will not be on Spotify and Patreon. In fact, it's something just a little bit deeper on my TBR list, but I still want to talk about it here on BookTube, and that is The Lying Life of Adults. So this is on my TBR list because I like to read books that are adapted into TV series and movies, and this one has just came out on Netflix on January or February, so it's really, really new. And I'm actually kind of proud of this book just because of my heritage. This book takes place in Italy, and I am 80% Italian, 50% Italian. My mom is 80% Italian. So it was really cool to read this book. But if you listen to me on my podcast, I'll go over the summary of the book, my review, and then a couple of discussion questions that might be found in some book clubs. So if you want to use this book for your own book club, or you want to suggest it to your book club, I have a couple of questions that you can use if you'd like. So let's go into this summary. The Lying Life of Adults tells the story of Giovanna. Giovanna was courageous and reckless as a young girl, but has grown into a young woman with numerous questions about who she is and where she belongs. The story is set in Naples, Italy, and told through Giovanna's perspective. I almost say Giannini because her family calls her that. But she details her adolescence from 13 to 16 years old and the growing pains she endured while searching for identity. Themes of the story include the struggle between good and bad, women as either sinners or saints, compunction, in other words, guilt, and gender roles. So my thoughts, and I kind of mentioned this, but I'm from a big Italian family. So when I learned that the book took place in Italy, I was very proud and excited to read it. Plus, they mentioned the towns where my great-grandparents are from. My great-grandmother's from, her family is from Naples and Calabria, and my pop-pop's parents, my great-grandparents on my pop-pop side, they're from Abruzzo, and these towns were mentioned in the book, so it got me really excited. So it was nostalgic because I've been to Italy twice on 2 different occasions, and I loved it, and I miss it even more reading this book. But I kind of told you that why I chose this book already, so I have a script so I don't forget anything. But I really like books that are adapted to TV series or movies because it means it's good enough for the big screen. It's something that's worth preserving for future audiences. If they don't like to read the book, this is another way to preserve the book into a different format so that more people can get engrossed in the story, like us readers. The beginning of the story worried me at first, though, because Giovanna was worried that she looked like her aunt and didn't know if that was good or bad and wanted to see her. I figured that once she found her aunt and spent time with her, the book would slow down and lose its story. But that was only the beginning. Like, I was not disappointed after that. Giovanna learns that her aunt can love her one minute and then hate her for the next for something trivial. And boy, do I have that family drama. Not going to go into that. She also meets new friends and relationships because of her aunt. If your family has some drama, it's nothing like this. So I'm just going to go over 3 discussion questions. Just keep it brief. The first one is, what was your reaction have been as a child to have heard a parent say you were ugly? What effect would such a remark have had on you? And I would have been devastated, not just from my parents, but like if anybody called me ugly, I would have taken offense and been very sad and upset about it. But I would feel even worse hearing it from my parents because parents are meant to love their children unconditionally and treat them with respect and love. But I guess that's not the same in every family. I know my parents aren't perfect, and I wouldn't I'm not saying that they've ever called me ugly. I know no parent is perfect, but this doesn't excuse Giovanna's family for their behavior. Especially for them to say it loud enough for their daughter to hear it. I think it's very offensive, and I think it's kind of purposeful, even if that's not, maybe it was their intention, maybe it wasn't, but have you ever heard the saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all? It's one of those things. So I think it's very hurtful, but on the flip side, on Giovanna's perspective, I don't blame her for starting to question her identity because of this remark, because her family calls her ugly and she looks like her father's sister and her aunt, and saying like it's a bad thing. Giovanna knows nothing about her aunt, and she took offense because why would her aunt be so ugly? Why would it be such a bad thing to look like her aunt? So she had an identity crisis at then. And she said that she wasn't much of a beauty before then, but she didn't know what she was supposed to look like or what it meant to look like her aunt. So that's her perspective, but if I were be called ugly, I would have been devastated. I wouldn't understand it, and I think I would have an identity crisis as well. So those are my thoughts on that question. The next one. For most of us going through adolescence, we view our families through a different lens than we did in childhood. How does Giovanna come to question her family and the lies that were once accepted as truths? Giovanna questioned how honest her parents were, and that's the main takeaway from that. She always kept them in high regard and respect, but she had learned that her aunt wasn't the only villain in the story. Her aunt wasn't as mean as first as her parents made her out to sound. Her parents also lied to her about their wedding status and how it was kind of falling at the seams, that they're seeing people on the side, and they didn't mention to Giovanna how those people would affect Giovanna herself, because she knew who these people were that her parents were kind of fooling around with. And her parents also had certain expectations of Giovanna, even though she didn't want that burden nor cared for that future in the way that her parents did. And she found out in time they didn't have the best interests at heart for her. And this is something she learned from her aunt, and to keep her eyes open. So she realized that her parents didn't really, maybe they had good intentions and they wanted a brighter future for her than Giovanna wanted, but she realized that maybe they didn't really have the best interest at heart. They just wanted her to do these things because her parents wanted it. So she was surrounded by lies and a life laid out for her that wasn't hers. Instead, it was something that her parents wanted her to have. So those were the lies. The life surrounding Giovanna, her family as she knew it, her parents' relationship as she knew it, everything was a lie. And she learned that in time because of the exposure to her aunt and a different way of thinking. And the last question, how would you describe Vittoria? And that's Giovanna's aunt. What was Giovanna's reaction to meeting Vittoria? How does this relationship change Giovanna? In which way do her familial alliances change? When Giovanna first met Vittoria, she was kind of scared of her. She didn't know what to make of her, and her aunt was neither mean nor nice during the first meeting, but she was full of life and emotions. To me, Vittoria reminds me of a volcano. She can lay dormant, yes, that's how you pronounce it, right? Waiting for the next eruption, which will inevitably come. But she can be calm, she can be happy, she can be content. But then her fury, the eruption, will arise. Her anger, vengeful side will come out. Her angry, vengeful side. She becomes violent and aggressive like a volcanic eruption, but then she'll calm down and will be affectionate to her family once more. And the last question of that four question thing. Giovanna's relationship with her aunt changed her outlook on her family life, kind of like I mentioned in the second question. She was exposed to a different way of thinking about how dishonest her parents are. Giovanna was able to open her eyes to her parents' flaws and how much they tried to hide from her, such as their marriage, its rockiness, and their relationships with their friends. Her relationship with her aunt also changed Giovanna due to the people she met through Vittoria. She met Margherita, the mother of her 3 new friends, Tonino, Corrada, and Giuliana, who would become her best friend. She also met Corrada's best friend, Rosario, who plays a bigger role in the book than I will say here. And she also meets a priest of her local church who helps her find her spiritual journey. And last but not least, she meets her future love interest, Roberto. So because of Giovanna's aunt, Vittoria, she meets a whole new group of people, new friends, and a new family, and basically a whole new life compared to if she were to stay at home under her parents' roof and not know anything about her aunt. So, moral of the story, be careful around family. And you just keep your eyes open and have a fresh perspective on everybody's outlook, but also take care of yourself because you have to think about what's best for you as well. But that is The Lying Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante. Here's the cover once more. So my Patreon accounters, subscribers, and my booktubers, you get to see this cover. For Spotify, you won't be able to have all these benefits. It is free, but if you want to support the podcast, it is $3 a month to get those episodes. You'll get to see the book cover on my face, my book nook, and get inspiration for your own. Those episodes are twice a month. And on YouTube, stay tuned, stay subscribed. You will have bonus episodes of books that are not mentioned on the podcast. You get bonus content. And if you want to buy your own copy of The Lying Life of Adults, whether it's just for fun or you want it for your book club, I have a website called lexiesbooknook.com. It is spelled LEXIESbooknook.com. Go into the bookshop tab and you can buy your own copy from here. There's also a list of other books I've read this year so far that have been mentioned in my podcast and bonus episodes, so you can go ahead and buy your copies there too. I will make a commission off of your sale, but at no extra cost to you. So that's just a little disclaimer. And that is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you keep listening, and I hope you keep on reading.